How are you? Good morning. So you're in this session because you currently operate in a hybrid or multi-cloud environment, or you're considering it. If not, this would be a good time to get up and leave. Now, if you're operating in hybrid and multi-cloud, you're probably well aware that this added increased complexity, right? It's not as easy as it sounds. So, assuming this slide will switch forward, what we will cover today is some of the common challenges that you, our customers, share with us. We'll talk about how you can centralize and simplify your multi-cloud operations. We'll discuss how you can use AWS services solutions to expand beyond AWS, your experience, to the rest of your environment. We'll address how you can establish multi-cloud monitoring and observability. And then we will talk with Shane from Phillips 66, who will share with us the journey that they went through and the outcomes and successes they've had building on AWS open source services. And then we'll end with sharing more links, more information, our contact info, in case you want to talk and hear more, or if you have challenges that we didn't get a chance to address today just because we only have an hour. I'm Ellie Tamari. I lead business development for AWS multi-cloud customers. With me here today is Rich McDonough, a principal solution architect, who's my colleague, and Shane Carter from Phillips 66, director of cloud and operations. Okay, so let's talk about multi-cloud challenges. Anybody interested in a single pane of glass? Can I see a raise of hands if that's something you're trying to solve for? We hear that a lot. Beyond looking for that elusive single pane of glass, we hear about looking for uniformed experiences that allow you to cross environments, right? We're thinking about, what are we thinking about? Solutions for different teams, for different personas, right? You want to make it easy, have different dashboards depending on what your different people are working on. We're looking to save some of the more complex, time-consuming setups. And then, of course, we hear quite often from customers who are looking for reusable solutions, make it very easy to just repeat what you're doing without having to reinvent anything. So yes, we'll try to address all of this. We'll share with you quite a bit on how we can solve for this. So let's dive in. So AWS started developing solutions that expand beyond AWS to hybrid and multi-cloud back in 2016. This was with Systems Manager. And since then, we've added a lot of new solutions, new features. Rich, you want to join me?
Yeah.
Talk a bit about that?
Yeah, no worries. So on the features side, I'm going to break this into two different categories because I'll find a lot of the time when customers talk to us about trying to extend their AWS experience outside of AWS to edge, another cloud, on-prem, et cetera, it can be a little hard to articulate what exactly it is they're trying to accomplish. Sometimes it can be just running an AWS agent in another environment. And we have tons of examples of this. So the Systems Manager agent, CloudWatch, there's a credential provider I'll be talking about from Roles Anywhere, which is super useful for this as well. There's also going to be the AWS distro for OpenTelemetry. There's a lot of that a little bit later on. Don't worry, we're going to get there. But these are what I call the code integrations, or the it's basically when you run code that we help provide through an open source project in your environment. Now, what this means is when you look at the shared responsibility model, you take on more of the responsibility for operating these applications that use these agents. There's the other type of integration, which is where the AWS service will communicate directly with another external entity. So two examples of this that I can immediately think of are using AWS Glue to talk to BigQuery. You can do that integration today without having to run any of your own code. You use the credentials from GCP and put them into Glue to do your data discovery. Another example is one that we actually just launched yesterday. So it's let me get this right, multi-source data metric querying with CloudWatch. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but you can use CloudWatch now to pull data directly from Azure Monitor. You can create alerts on it. You can visualize all in the CloudWatch console, all in one experience. Now, that's just 2 examples, but there are others. The point is, we are committed to meeting you where you are. Now, that could be on-prem, it could be in another cloud provider. It doesn't matter. We're still here to help you solve these complex challenges. Let's go on next slide. All right.
We don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
So because this presentation is short, you can expect to hear a lot of great things. So Rich?
All right, here, I'll
take it away.
Take that. So honestly, we don't have the time for everything. Nobody does. The reason for the cloud, the value of the cloud is, well, there's many values for the cloud. Automation is the one that I'm really going to harp on. So if we had the time to walk up to every server, pop in a disk or a CD, I'm really dating myself here, install an application, have all this care and feeding that goes into this box, you wouldn't really need the cloud. But that's not very realistic. You don't have time for that. We're all pressed for time, and some of us run estates of thousands or tens of thousands of servers. You need automation. And that's where the time crunch really is felt. So what I'm going to walk through here is a little bit of a model of how you can access AWS services from outside of AWS. The rules for this are extremely similar between other cloud environments and on-prem. But for the moment, we'll assume that this is a rack filled with pizza boxes. Standard fare, I'm sure most of you here have them. Actually, show of hands, who here has an on-prem environment that they're having to take care of? That's exactly what I expected. The all-in on cloud story is a hard one to accomplish, worthwhile. It's not right for everybody. But if you want to extend the AWS experience, I'm going to give you 2 options here. The first one is the Systems Manager one. You don't have to use it. I'm just going to highlight it because of some of the capabilities that it exposes for you. To extend the use of AWS into this other place, you're first going to have this agent. You need to have security credentials. So if you have a box running in your other environment, let's say it needs to talk to S3 or authenticate to an API gateway, anything that takes place using AWS authentication and authorization, you have to have credentials for this. Our best practice is, of course, don't create long-lived credentials that you bake onto your file system that then live there forever. Please don't do that. There are better options, and the Systems Manager approach is one of them. Because Systems Manager will fetch ephemeral credentials on your behalf and rotate them every 30 minutes. It will be cached locally on the server, and the role that is associated with the Systems Manager agent has all the permissions that you grant it. But that's just one option. What if you don't need Systems Manager? Or if you have other tooling that takes care of inventory and patching and so on? Roles Anywhere can perform the same basic task. It will fetch temporary security credentials in a very similar way as seen by your applications. A very different way under the hood, though. And we're going to highlight a little of those mechanisms. So here we have 2 different options for how to basically extend AWS credentials to the outside. And I really got to highlight, same exact rules apply. This can be on-prem, this can be cloud. It's the connectivity where we're really going to have to kind of dig in a little bit and make sure that people understand the best path forward for your needs. So depending on the path that you choose, and you'll note I don't even have static credentials on here. I will never encourage somebody to use them unless they really have no other choice. On the left-hand side, I've got a bunch of icons that show some of the features that come along with the Systems Manager approach. So this is compliance reporting. This is patch management, session management, having an incident management and response approach, this automation. There's a whole bunch of stuff. We don't have time to go into it all, unfortunately. The roles anywhere side, which is the direction that our friends at Phillips 66 are actually moving towards. That provides a mechanism that uses mutual TLS to authenticate to AWS IAM and retrieve credentials. And what's really neat is every single time you call that credential provider, you get new credentials. You can call it as much as you need to for your application's needs. We'll show this when we go into a console, which is, by the way, running off of a server in another cloud provider. Now, connectivity is key for this. I'm going to dash through some of these animations really quickly for a moment. This is where people are going to get started, usually. You're going to talk through the internet, most of the time when you first start using AWS in a hybrid mode. We have exposed to the internet our public API endpoints for IAM. These are ubiquitous. Talking to our endpoints is secure. So it uses TLS. Depending on your needs, this might be sufficient. But a lot of you probably have much more sophisticated requirements. Maybe you work in highly regulated industries, and you might need to instead, I didn't go through all the animations, my bad. You might need to use a VPN connection. So this is a way of having your agent, be it SSM or roles anywhere, communicate privately into our authentication plane. You'll see a private endpoint icon over on the right-hand side. Our recommendation is if you have a requirement that all of your communications with our authentication services take place privately, begin exploring a VPN connection. Now, again, this might not be the right solution for absolutely everybody. You could use a direct connect. Note, I'm still talking about hybrid. I haven't moved on to another story yet. With Direct Connect, it is a fiber that is pulled directly into the AWS backbone, and it lands on a router that we operate. So there's some rules that have to go along with this, of course. You have to get an LOA in order to actually have fiber pulled into our backbone. It has to be part of a managed point of presence and so on. It's a powerful way of having truly private, zero internet access between us and you.
Okay, so that was hybrid.
That was hybrid.
But we have people here operating in multi-cloud.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Luckily, I have a little bit of a discussion around that as well.
Good.
Now, VPN is where people start on this journey, but you don't have to end there. There's a little bit of a trick to this, okay? When you have two cloud providers, you can't own the fiber between them, obviously. It'd be kind of cool if you could, but you can't. Most people start with a VPN for this connectivity, but there is another option, though, that I actually don't have shown here. You can talk to a partner. Now, we have partners such as Equinix and Megaport. They can pull fiber on the one hand over Direct Connect, on the other hand over from Azure Express Route or Google Cloud Interconnect. You can even do another leg that gets pulled over to your on-prem environment if you need to do, say, kind of hairpinning and on-prem packet inspection. Not usually recommended, but people have requirements. Those approaches do give you the complete end-to-end multi-cloud interconnectivity that you might need for those industries that really require it.
Okay, that looks super complicated to me. Demo?
Yeah, let's go for a little bit of a demo. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the systems manager side, but that's just going to be a tee-up to get to the roles anywhere approach. So the first place that I'm going to land inside of systems manager is going to be fleet manager. And what you're going to see here is I've stood up some servers, one or two, and they're in more than one AWS account. They're in more than one Azure account. And I also have a bunch of things running in an on-prem lab as well. And as you can see, I've got a wide variety of operating systems here that I've been working with. So lots of Linux, lots of Windows, Ubuntu, you name it. What I don't have is any BSD. I apologize, I ran out of time, but that's okay. So the first thing that you're going to notice here, or rather the first thing that I would like you to notice, is if you look at these instance IDs, these are going to come up a little bit. You have the ones that refer to EC2 instances. They all start with I, and that's an EC2 instance ID. It's not exactly, an opaque thing. But those that start with MI, that's short for managed instance. So these are those machines that aren't in AWS, but we can treat them like they are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Azure 2. I'm going to have a little bit of a peek at it. So let's say I want to see what applications are installed on it. I had mentioned inventory as a part of Systems Manager. This podium is a little too short. I have to bend over a lot. There we go. Let's say we're looking for things that have, I don't know, Bash in it. There you go. So we can actually see the version of Bash that's installed on the server. And that's just a trivial example. This also can be used for all of the patches that are installed on these systems as well. And we'll get to the patch manager component in just a moment. But first, there's something I need to do. I need to start a terminal session on this machine. And I'm going to keep it running for a few minutes. Please don't do everything as root. I know I am, and I deserve to be lashed for it. Yeah, do as I say, not as I do, please. So on this machine, I got to highlight, there's no there's no inbound ports exposed on this server. This is not SSH. It just looks like SSH. The way that this operates is the agent initiates a WebSocket connection, which then lands on the Systems Manager service and holds that WebSocket open. This communication all goes through that WebSocket. And you're going to see some neat things, like up here at the top. I've encrypted this with a customer-managed key because I think it's really neat to do so, and because it lets me keep logs of every keystroke, except for password changes, I might add, inside of CloudWatch logs. So if I need to audit this later on, I can. Super useful, but that's all for that. I'm going to leave this up for just a moment because I'm going to have to come back to it when we talk about roles anywhere. But I wanted to first highlight a couple of the other features that come along out of the box with Systems Manager. I'll actually show you the hybrid activations page. I'm not going to import or activate an activation on a remote box at this time, but I'll show you what the process looks like. It's incredibly straightforward. So say reinvent demo 123. I'm going to select the role that it is going to assume. I'm going to make typos because it's a live demo. There we go. So you see right here, I've got an activation code at the top. I've got an activation ID. That was easy. Then what I can do is if I want to manage a server, I just use these tokens when I activate the agent. And here's an example of a PowerShell script that does exactly that. Feel free to copy and paste that activation code, by the way. It's already dead. So it'd be kind of funny, though, if somebody actually did that. You can drop this into the user data script on a Windows machine when it's coming up, and it will activate, appear in Systems Manager a minute later. Inventory is collected. All the remote management capabilities come along for the ride. Pretty straightforward, actually. Now, the net result of all of this, we're going to be able to see in places like compliance or in inventory. Now, imagining the use case of trying to manage the compliance state of a distributed fleet across different environments. It sucks. It's hard. I know. I've been there. I haven't always worked here for AWS. But at a glance, we can see which resources are compliant, which ones aren't. And if we want to really dig into the details, before we move on, we're going to visit Patch Manager for a moment. Ooh, my environment's in rough shape. Full disclosure, I keep my environments marginally broken because demos are very boring otherwise. But I didn't know I was in this kind of bad shape. That's actually pretty bad. I'll probably have to clean that up later. But here we can see very easily which systems are missing patches, what their state is, where they are. And even from right here, let's say I want to go ahead and install some patches on this machine. Scan and install, reboot if needed, all patches, do not store logs. All right. So we'll pop back in on this in a few minutes and see how it did. But meanwhile, while that runs, I wanted to highlight the roles anywhere approach, because Systems Manager, again, it's not right for everybody. It's right for a lot of people. Let's say that I want to know who I am as a user of this machine. And this extends to the workloads that operate on as well. So the command would be AWS, STS, get caller identity. I'm going to typo that again. All right, fantastic. Let's make that a little bigger so you can all see it. So the role that I've assumed, I've called it, McRich hybrid instances. It's not a very creative name, but you're going to see the path that it comes back with. It's that managed instance ID. This tells us conclusively that these privileges that I have obtained from AWS, they are associated with the Systems Manager agent. But what if I don't want to use that? I'm going to show you in a moment how I have this set up. There we go. So I've actually assumed the same role, but using a different mechanism altogether. Now, again, the information in here is ephemeral. Feel free to take a photograph and try to steal my credentials. It won't work. There we go. So if you've ever had a look at a credentials file, this will be immediately evident what's happening. At the top, we have these credentials that have been supplied by a Systems Manager. And like I said, they're going to rotate every 30 minutes. This second stanza, actually, show of hands, who here has actually used roles anywhere before? That's what I thought, not very many people. It needs more love, which is why it's here. Credential helper. There's no credentials that are stored on the file system. They don't exist. What we have instead are certificates. So let's have a look at, I won't show you the private key, that would be a little silly. But I've got the certificates and the CSR and all the information I need for creating this trusted connection between this server and AWS, all stored on the local file system. Obviously, the private key would be where the magic happens, but what's really cool is I can take this command right here, and by the way, the AWS signing helper command is just written in Go. You can just download it and toss it into your own profiles, and away you go. If we run it, and I'll make it easier to read, look at that. Session token, usual AWS credentials, nothing magic here other than what you would expect. All of our SDKs work with it just the way you would want them to. Something else that's really neat, if we run it again, note the expiration. It's changed. Every time I call this, I get a new set of credentials, and they all expire 60 minutes after issuance. So that gives you flexibility in how you take advantage of this. Let's pop in on Patch Manager. Oh, it's still running. So close. That's okay. I didn't necessarily expect that to finish in the time that I was up here. But the Roles Anywhere approach, along with the lights out, we'll call it, the no internet access options for getting between another environment and AWS, it gives you end-to-end opportunities that I don't think people necessarily know enough about. And we encourage you to go ahead and follow these approaches. So with that, I'm actually going to flip back over to the slideware for a minute because observability is the next topic and a natural lead up from this. There we go. All yours.
Good job.
Okay, so we covered management and operations. And next we're going to talk about monitoring and observability. You can't manage what you can't measure. Usually this would apply to economics, education, other fields. But today we actually mean the art and science of using monitoring and observability in order to ensure your operation is running smoothly. So you really can look at measurement that runs across a wide range of possibilities. We can ping a server to see if it's up, or we can get into detailed transaction tracing, right? And the granularity depends on the level that you need it to be. So at Amazon, I don't know how many of you are aware, we are obsessed about measurement. We're obsessed about data. It's actually one of our core tenets for how we operate. We do this in order to make sure that our customers are delighted with our service. And we really drill down, we dig into measuring and ensuring that we have the right data to get this information. You'll see a lot of surveys that you'll have to fill out today. That's in order to make sure that we did the right thing, we shared the right information, you got what you needed from us. And it's great to get that feedback, right? So this is exactly what we're looking for with Amazon monitoring and observability.
All right. I'm actually going to go back up here and talk about OpenTelemetry for a minute. I can take that, I suppose. Thank you. OK. Who here has never heard of OpenTelemetry? Oh, thank goodness. Most of you have. OK, that's good. Who here is actually using OpenTelemetry? Ah, OK, good. There's a lot on this slide to unpack. Don't worry, I'm not going to read the slide. The long and the short of it is OpenTelemetry has become the de facto standard for observability signals, for the sending of signals, receiving of it, collating data, et cetera. From a multi-cloud and hybrid perspective, it's key. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of a use case here for a moment. If you're using what, for the moment, I'll just call a single vendor observability library. You might have to bake that library into your application. Super common practice. You get a lot of value from that, by the way. And I've done this myself with different vendors for years. But if you want to collect that telemetry, get the logs out of a server, out of a web application, understand the performance characteristics that your customers see, collecting that data with a single vendor source that maybe is proprietary means if you want to change your vendor later on, you have to change the library, which means you have to rebuild your applications, which means you have to redeploy them, test them, integration testing. You might have to retrain your staff. It's a lot. It is definitely a lot. OpenTelemetry frees you from that. You're going to find that it's supported by a lot of the observability vendors out there. So you can talk about the Datadogs and the New Relics and the App Dynamics and et cetera, the AWSs. We're committed to OpenTelemetry, so much so that we actually have our own distribution of OpenTelemetry. So remember, OpenTelemetry is not a product. It is a protocol. It is a standard. The AWS distro for OpenTelemetry, we just call it ADOT for short because it's a real mouthful. It has baked into it the integrations already for X-Ray, for CloudWatch, for Datadog, for New Relic, for App Dynamics, for Splunk. Those are all the ones that pop off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's more. Our suggestion, our encouragement from a multi-cloud or a hybrid environment is to really double down on OpenTelemetry because it's going to give you the most options and it's going to reduce as much as possible those costs that you incur if and when you choose to switch vendors in the future. Now, that, of course, tees up to the other side of this, which is Amazon Managed Grafana. And we're actually going to talk a bit about Amazon Managed Prometheus as well, but I don't have the slideware for it. Grafana is very much focused on multiple environments. In one Grafana dashboard, and just talking about Grafana, not our Grafana, because there is no our Grafana, that's the key to that. You can pull together data from more than one cloud provider in one pane of glass. You absolutely can. Our friends at Phillips 66, they're doing that right now. We're going to show you that. There's more than 50 different integrations that are available. In fact, I think we just launched some more, and my numbers are probably going to get a little out of date really quickly. But with Amazon Managed Grafana, unlike off-the-shelf open source Grafana, you don't have to worry about patching your servers, rebooting them. You don't have to worry about availability. You don't have to build a cluster of any kind. We take care of all of that for you while still operating Grafana exactly the same way as you would have it if you were rolling your own or finding it from someplace else. Plus, we also have Grafana Enterprise if you need those features as well. But that's enough about that. I actually want to talk to Shane for a little bit. And I want to see how Phillips 66 has done their architecture for observability. Now, full disclosure, Shane does not only use AWS, and that is completely OK. But I'm going to have him go ahead and highlight a little bit of their journey.
Okay. Thank you.
There we go.
So back in 2022, Phillips 66 started an effort to upgrade a lot of our monitoring tools and create a single vision or platform where everybody inside the company can go and get their metrics. The reason we did that is we had a lot of outdated tools that had been around, seemed like 100 years. We have DevOps teams across the company that would do things their own way, and that worked for that team. But when something happened on the weekend or at night, our response center or our NOC didn't have visibility into that system. So we were trying to bubble that all up and upgrade the tools that we have to make it easier for everybody to use a unified platform so we can get and everybody can see that data. We were looking for a consistent, we call it AWS experience, because most of our customers inside of Philips, 70% of our workload is in AWS. We love AWS, 30% is in Azure. So we were looking for a way to, can we use AWS, the managed tools they have, and bring metrics and signals in the same way, no matter what platform you are, that you're using, whether it be on-prem, Azure, and bring into the AWS experience that we're already using today. That was our first goal. Our second goal, which probably should have been number one, is reduce MTTR. That was the whole reason we're doing this. If you're not trying to do that, then I'm sure what you're trying to do. Then we also wanted to tightly integrate our monitoring goals with the business process. So anything that was business related that was important, we wanted to ensure that we had a metric to support that. Whether it was up or down, was the usability good or bad, was there anything that we could do to improve that? We also wanted to ensure that we kept our costs down. We did a couple of POCs with some other vendors and ran into some high costs, even though the tool worked really well. Monitoring and observability can get very expensive very fast. It seems like it's a low cost in the beginning, then it can blow up. Again, was the holistic visibility. We were looking for that single view platform, what Grafana provided us. We wanted a way to, if I wanted to get metrics from an application, I go to a drop-down, select that application, and it pulls all the resources that that application is using into one or two dashboards that I can easily see no matter where those resources are running, whether it was AWS, on-prem, or Azure. Then we were looking for KPIs that you could actually take action on. I mean, metrics are fun, collecting a lot of data is fun, and it's fun to come in on Monday morning and see how you're doing. But if we couldn't take actions on that, and we couldn't give that to the management and say, this is how we're doing, and this is how we can improve, then those KPIs were not very usable.
All right, very cool. So let's actually talk a little bit about the architecture itself then that you have pulled together. So walk us through this a little bit, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. So there's lots of ways you can get data inside of Prometheus, inside of Grafana. We use AWS ADOT, their open telemetry or OTel agent, to deploy on our servers, doesn't matter which platform, AWS, Azure, on-prem. Windows, Linux, we deploy those agents on there. We were able to collect all that data, go into a central Prometheus environment. We have an account called Observability. One managed Grafana, all the data goes there, and we're able to view all that data using our single pane of glass Grafana. The architecture here shows that Linux, Windows, and we also were deploying ADOT on EKS clusters, AKS, and on-prem clusters.
Cool. So why Amazon manage Prometheus then, and not just rolling your own?
Yeah, we are a small, big company, small shop. There's a few of us, so we want it to be easy. We want that easy button. We want it to be able to just give us the data so we can focus on more business-driven problems and issues, and not have to worry about the details of managing Prometheus and Grafana ourselves.
All right, awesome. So that was that version. Now let's look at the next one. So this is how you're running things over outside of AWS. There's a couple more hops here, but...
And this is future view.
This is future view.
Yes.
That's okay.
Yeah. So this is using IAM's roles anywhere. Today we're using key pairs, which you guys know is very challenging to manage and keep up to date. I see some smiles. But everything, we have thousands of servers. We only have 29 clusters, but all that is key value pairs. All the data is, we have to rotate them, keep in policy, and you can almost have one person doing that. But we are moving to IAM roles anywhere. When we rolled out in early of 2023, this was not an option.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. So it was worth mentioning when roles anywhere was a little bit earlier in its journey. It wouldn't support this deployment approach. Now it does. So with that, what I want to do is I actually want to show your environment a little bit. Now it's a production environment. I can't show you everything. We'll show you what we can. And
it's not our environment, yeah. It's copy.
Really, but I am going to open with, this is a screenshot from their environment. Can you walk us through this a little bit? There's a lot going on. I actually think it's awesome. But I'm going to let you take this for a minute.
So this is just one of the views. This is all our compute within the company. On the left-hand side, we have all our providers, our total Windows, total servers, then Windows and Linux. These are total servers running at the time of the screenshot. Then on the right side, we have it divided up by environment. 674 in AWS, we have Azure, we have on-prem, and we also have VMC Cloud. I didn't mention before that we are moving some workloads over. But this is a view for an environmental set, like where is my compute? Down below, we did some heat mapping of servers that are running hot, servers are running low, and that type. But this is just one of our high-level views that we have in Grafana today.
All right. So what I've done is I have modeled or mocked some of this. I've taken the JSON that Shane has very kindly provided me, and I've applied this to the demo environment that I was walking through earlier. And by the way, not everything is green. I do have some systems that are in a little bit of distress, which is, it's either bad system administration on my part or good demonstration on AWS's part. I'm not really sure which. But we're going to talk a bit about how we're collecting this data, how Shane is getting this data from multiple environments. And I'm actually going to dig right into this. So there's 3 different views that we're going to explore. The first one is this one here, which is the high-level server overview. And I don't think there's going to be any major surprises here, other than I don't really know what the heck is going on to this Windows server. So maybe we should go ahead and have a look at it. So the way that he has constructed these is very well thought. You can click through, you can drill down from a top level directly into any one node that is in distress. Now, I don't have any of the alerts and monitoring set up in here. You can use a little bit of your imagination for that if you wish. This view, you're going to notice some variables at the top. So we see the server name, not a big surprise, but we also have account names, cloud providers. We're going to talk about this in just a minute because the way that they've constructed this lookup mechanism is very clever, and I'm a big fan of it. And as you can see, there's metric data. It's not exactly surprising. It's metrics. The takeaway from this is I need to build my Windows servers with more memory than this one. And the same thing can be said for Linux boxes. So let's take one that I know is running over in another cloud. Here we go. Same exact story. We're collecting this data from this remote system, bringing it all together into Amazon Managed Prometheus, which, again, is open source. It's just Prometheus. We just operate it for you as a service. And you don't have to worry about a single Prometheus node going down and not having your metrics. But what I think is a little bit more interesting, and we're going to revisit this view right towards the end, if we have time, is if we go ahead and have a look at the way that you're using Kubernetes. So I'm actually going to ask, tell us a little bit about the workloads that you're using Kubernetes for.
Yes. So most of our workload for Kubernetes is in our Azure environment. Machine learning, AI, today we were doing most of that in Azure. Mm-hmm. So we have Kubernetes clusters over there supporting that effort, and most of that is in Azure. But we do have some EKS stuff that's running in AWS.
Very, very cool. So the way that this has been constructed is I can actually move back and forth between different cloud providers and different accounts inside of a cloud provider. You can see a little bit of magic here. Actually, I think I did that a little fast. So I'm going to flip between this Azure secondary and this Azure primary. And you're going to notice that the subscription ID changes. The rest of the graph changes. And then the rest of this shouldn't be much of a surprise. And we can choose like a different node if we want. And the data that's being collected here is extensive. There's definitely not enough time to unpack all of the data that's being collected. But it is really fantastic. What I want to show, though, is let's say I flip over to AWS for a moment, not because I work for AWS, but because it demonstrates this very well. So it's redrawing the account name, and now it's going to redraw the account ID and all the rest of the data. Now, the way that this is pulled together is with a lookup table. Now, I'm curious, the way that you get this lookup data today, do you have a static file, or do you build this dynamically?
Dynamically.
Oh, awesome. That's great. So I'm not that cool. I have a static file, and I'm going to show it to you here. So I have this little account data file sitting over in S3. Not a very big deal. Let's go ahead and query it so that we can see what's in it. CSV, yes, comma, yes, 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 yes. OK, that might be a little small. I'll zoom in a lot. Their approach is way more intelligent than mine. So it's demo. So I have account name. I have a subscription ID over here, or an AWS account. This is just lookup data, which in turn is being accessed from Athena. Athena is a data source for Grafana. So relatively easy stuff to pull together. I have all this lookup data available, including an on-prem one, which is not very exciting from a Kubernetes perspective for me. But then if we go over to these dashboards, let's have a look at the variables. There we go. So here is a nice SQL query for Athena. It's pulling the data out. It gives us a little preview of some of the values that it has found. And then this is used as a lookup for Grafana itself. So then when we go back here, we flip back to Azure for a moment, it's going to query in real time off of that S3 S3, the file in the S3 bucket. I'm losing my words today. And it's going to look up the appropriate account ID for the data that it has found in Prometheus. Now, from the Prometheus side of things, let's have a quick look at a little bit of the raw data. This is where my PromQL skills are going to look very questionable. Let's say cloud provider equals Azure. This is going to return a lot of data. There we go. It is a lot. So that's just the things that are up at the moment, right? Let's go ahead and expand this. The labels that we're applying to the data coming out of, in this case, this Kubernetes cluster, you've added some data here to enable these lookups. So I see that we've added cloud provider, cloud account ID. These are not out of the box with the node exporter, correct?
That's correct.
That's right. And there's probably some others that I don't think I've implemented in this environment. Pardon me. But once this data is sitting inside of Prometheus, then it's very simple for us to visualize it all in this one pane of glass using Grafana. So now in turn, if I head back to that top level dashboard, we're going to get this very easy view of those servers that are up, that are responding, that are sending data. And again, I wish I had some of the alerts in here, but that's OK. Now, there's one other thing that I need to highlight here, which is the collection of this data. It is coming from ADOT. So while Prometheus is being used as the destination for this metric data, so ADOT as a collector, being highly agnostic and being a standardized protocol, means you're not limited to sending this data just into Amazon Managed Prometheus. Here we're doing it. Doesn't have to be the case. But there are some other features that ADOT enables as well. These aren't a part of the Philips 66 environment at the moment, but I'm going to show it briefly because I think it's cool. This is an example of some of the application traces that you can instrument using ADOT. Nice thing about ADOT is it covers not just metrics, but also logs and traces. If you've used other application performance monitoring tools, this sort of distributed trace graph is probably very familiar to you. And it's definitely too small for you to see over there. But we're going to have things like the percentage of successes between different nodes in this graph, how long transactions have taken, et cetera. And if we are so inclined, again, using the same tooling without having to go and add extra mechanics inside of your application, you can get the trace analytics. And you can see how long it took for each step of a distributed application to actually perform or compose its part of a response. And if you go really far with this, you can even have it do some really cool things like capture database queries. Obviously, without the actual query values included, just a prepared statement. Very, very cool, very powerful. And it can all be done just from any environment using Prometheus and Grafana.
Yep.
Now, there's one other thing I was going to show quickly before we start to head into the last part here. These are not standard off-the-shelf links inside of Grafana. I added these over the weekend because I was, clearly looking to write some code or something like that. But wouldn't it be cool if you could go directly from Grafana into any one of the systems that you're operating? So luckily, you can. It takes a little bit of code. I'll show you the code in just a second. In fact, you can even go directly from this view into Session Manager. And there we go. Now, the way that we do this, don't worry, you're not going to watch me write a bunch of code live. It's incredibly straightforward. All I'm doing is looking at that managed instance ID based on the host name label that is coming along with the data collected inside of Prometheus. Nice, simple, easy. And then I'm reflecting that back in a properly structured redirect so that you can load this if you're already logged into the AWS console. So just an example of how you can pull it all together, have the view from multiple clouds all in one, and hopefully be able to reduce a lot of your operating overhead. All right, so let's talk about the results here. I want to hear how things landed for you over at Phillips 66.
Yeah, so this was pretty big. And I know 30% time saving is like hard to believe. I didn't believe it at first either. Like when I was first told this, they said 30% at first. Wow, that's great. And I go, oh wait, nobody will believe that. Are you sure? And the answer was yes. And the reason why is that because each DevOps team did observability or monitoring in their own way, it was very challenging when we had a customer out in the field that had an iOS device that was trying to submit a form, and he would say, it's slow. The architecture of that iOS device came through guest network, private whatever, VPN, API gateway, Lambda, MuleSoft does its thing, maybe pull some data from Azure because it's a historical report, and bring that all up for the person out in the field to review his data. Without having a single view, the DevOps team is going to multiple locations to trying to find why is it slow? What is going on? Is it a network issue? Is it a MuleSoft issue? It's always a MuleSoft issue. No, I'm just kidding. Is it an AWS issue? What kind of issue is it, and where do I need to look? With this single view Grafana, one of those drop downs at the top was application. So you hit the drop down, go to the application name, and let it pull the data for you so you can see it in one or two screens all in one place. So that's why it was able to reduce that MTTR by such a huge percent. Again, we were trying to provide that single platform. I think Grafana is amazing. Open source is amazing, and getting that all into one place from no matter where you live, where your resources live, is awesome. Tight integration. We're a ServiceNow shop as well, so any alerts from either Prometheus or Grafana, it will go up to ServiceNow ITOM for any automation or any type of alerting for our NOC team. And my screen went blank.
Oh, no. So that's okay. Well, it's still presenting up there, though.
Okay. And the last one is to be flexible. Obviously, open source gives you the flexibility that you can do whatever you want to do. Some of the vendors, you use it how they give it to you. Open source is very amazing. You can create whatever you want, provide it any data that you need, and provide the information that your customers are looking for.
Cool. All right, so let me see if this thing is... Oh, there we go. Okay, it came back to life. It died up here for a moment. I don't know if you could tell or not, but it's okay. So I want to highlight that these things are open by design. So you own your data, you own your workloads. We're not looking to create a walled garden. We're very committed to this as a part of our philosophy. And from the open source perspective, our thoughts on observability are likewise actually open source. We actually publish a best practices guide for observability. And in there, we have a page dedicated to hybrid and multi-cloud. Now, hybrid and multi-cloud can be a little more vexing than just doing things in one provider environment, and we completely understand that. It's not like we all have only ever worked in the cloud. I'm sure most of the people here have worked in other environments, and that is completely okay. These places still provide enormous business value, and we do want to meet people where they are. But we do really encourage people to have a look at this best practices guide. I'm going to show some QR codes in just a moment, which will lead you over to that. I'm also just going to highlight that we do have the, let's see if we got it right, multi-data source querying capabilities inside of CloudWatch now. It's not a part of this demo, but it is available in the console right now. So if you have an Azure subscription or Prometheus server, or an Amazon managed Prometheus server as well, you can collect metric data from that today. You can also get data from an S3 bucket, which is super cool. So imagine the use cases for that. Your applications can dump their metric data into an S3 object. Then from a CloudWatch perspective, you can turn that into metrics and alarms and do all the coolness that you'll ever need to. But please go ahead and have a look at that and see if it matches your use cases. Here are some QR codes. I hope that you were able to get to them. So the first one on the left, this would be, it's basically our landing page for hybrid and multi-cloud. The middle one goes to the AWS distro for OpenTelemetry, which is, again, it's an open source project that resides on GitHub. And the last one is the best practices guide. Yes, it is. A little far for me to see, but that's OK. Extremely useful information. I hope that it gives people a lot of value. Did you want to take the last ones, or?
Well, I just wanted to share that if you found this session interesting, we recommend that you look at session COP329.
Mm-hmm.
That session is going to allow you to interact more with our teams, ask more questions. We don't really have time to cover everything we wanted to, not to mention Q&A at the end of this session. Yeah. So we strongly recommend that one if you can bring it in. And as an extra bonus, the solution architect from Phillips 66, Manish Dabra, will be there and can also discuss exactly the details of how they structure their environment, and you can talk to them about that.
Yep.
So I just want to end by thanking Rich McDonough, Principal Solution Architect, who's absolutely fantastic and a great partner.
Oh, thank you.
And of course, Shane Carter. And thank you guys for coming today. We will be, thank you. We will be available after this session, so we can take questions out.